All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are plunging headfirst into a truly grim, dark, gothic fable to explore the very absolute depths of nihilism and the will to power. And our guide for this pretty intense journey will be looking through the malicious, deeply visionary eyes of a figure known as the Crimson Jester. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when classical Nietzschean philosophy violently collides with an apocalyptic narrative, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to unpack the core themes of the Proto-Übermensch and decode what is honestly a fascinating philosophical deep dive. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so starting off with this incredibly intense cold open, the Crimson Jester hits us immediately with this terrifying fundamental realization. The pristine armor of reason, the flawless logic traditionally defended by the classical knight, is a complete lie. It's just an elaborate facade. And what's it hiding? The staggering, absolutely empty nothingness sitting right at the core of all human constructs. Everything society builds to make itself feel safe and secure, it's literally just a painted mask slapped over the abyss. But, and this is crucial, here is exactly where the philosophy takes a really sharp turn away from pure despair. For the Proto-Übermensch, this nothingness, it isn't a grave at all. It is the absolute, purifying void, and it's the only honest foundation you can possibly have for a sovereign existence. The void essentially becomes the true, living ink required to carve out his own masterpiece. You essentially have to clear away all those false, rotting foundations before you can build something authentically yours. Now, this setup gives us a profoundly compelling Fichtean clash. On one hand, we have the Knight of Reason, desperately clinging to his Apollonian illusions, his dogmatic ideals, and this overwhelming need for predictable order. But on the exact opposite side, we have the Crimson Jester, serving as the literal manifestation of the Jungian shadow and the Dionysian abyss. It is this gripping dialogue between structure and total chaos, and it completely exposes how the knight's pristine armor is just fundamentally incompatible with the absolute nihilism that the Jester represents. And this massive tension finally explodes with the apocalyptic arrival of the Great Star. Now, make no mistake, this isn't some guiding star of hope. It represents a blinding, molten crimson fire that completely shatters all our static, predictable definitions of the divine. And it happens in three distinct, brutal phases. First up, it incinerates every last one of those Apollonian illusions. Then, its bleach-white light violently exposes that irrational abyss we were just talking about. And finally, it sets the ultimate stage for a wild, Dionysian dance across the ashes of the old world. With the old world completely in ashes, absolutely everything changes, even the very way we speak. Here we really have to confront how the words we use to navigate reality are in themselves historical battlegrounds. The Great Star doesn't just knock down buildings. It violently transforms our language in what the source material calls a philological transvaluation. The actual definitions of morality are ripped apart and entirely rewritten by this celestial catalyst. Which brings us right to the Jester's next aphorism. Under the unforgiving, blinding light of the Great Star, the old slave morality, the mindset that once sanctified weakness, pity, and just playing it safe, is completely incinerated, gone. Suddenly, good is the vital flame that consumes, and bad is the ice of stagnation. The entire moral compass of the world is just entirely flipped on its head. To put that into perspective a bit, this unholy transvaluation is actually a restoration of the original, noble, archaic meanings of these words. Think about it. Good no longer means being polite, or quiet, or harmless. It reverts back to being the vital flame of strength, something deeply, fiercely life-affirming. Conversely, bad doesn't mean evil anymore. It just denotes the rotting corpse of a stagnant peace. It's anything that is weak or simply refuses to grow. And this brings us to what I think is a brilliantly monstrous Fichtean synthesis right at the heart of this fable. We start with our thesis, right? The pristine armor of reason. That violently collides with our antithesis, the consuming fire of the shadow. But the result, the synthesis, isn't some polite compromise. No, the knight doesn't defeat his internal chaos. Actually, scratch that, he actively accepts it as a creative force. Becoming the Proto-Übermensch, he transforms into a shattered shell, a cracked vessel that manages to safely harbor the raging flame within. So what does this all mean for us? The absolutely crucial point here is that true mastery and strength lie in the successful integration and command of the Jungian shadow. You don't cast the shadow out. You definitely don't engage in this sterile, cowardly denial of it. You embrace it As the Jester dictates, you harbor the wildfire within the shattered shell of your old reason. That contained, directed chaos is the ultimate source of power. I mean, how could you ever rule the world if you're still hiding from your own shadow, right? This total integration leads directly to the birth of what the text calls the autonomous lawgiver. We're talking about an individual forged in the literal, destructive smashing of old tablets. They are born straight out of the death of dogmatic ideals. And, most importantly, they completely reject any external justification. They don't care about divine decrees, and they certainly don't care about societal guilt. They claim their authority solely through the raw, unfiltered exercise of their own will to power. They don't follow the law, they make it. Because, as we see here, true sovereignty is never just handed down by some piteous gods. It is violently claimed through self-determined creation. The gift of the blade is this perfect metaphor showing that real freedom, real rule over oneself, requires actively cutting away the dead weight of societal expectation. It's an active and, often destructive process of carving out your very own destiny in a godless universe. Delivering his final soaring monologue, the Crimson Jester absolutely rejoices at this new reality. He calls it the dawn of the disenchanted. The heavens are completely bleached of their tired, piteous gods. All the old safety nets, entirely gone. It leaves behind a vast wasteland governed by nothing but the purifying silence of the abyss. Now, that might sound terrifying to the uninitiated, sure, but to the sovereign individual, that silence is absolute, unadulterated freedom. So who actually inhabits this incredible new wasteland? Well, it's no longer a place of hollow suffering, but literally the ultimate canvas for creation. It is home to the ugliest man, the figure who essentially murdered pity through the sheer, staggering weight of his grotesque sovereignty. And it belongs to the soothsayer of the seventh solitude, who looks at the void and doesn't see a terrifying prison but steps right up and claims it as his rightful throne. These are the ones who have endured the abyss and learned to command their own chaos. As we wrap up this explainer today, sort of virtually dancing in the ashes of the old world here, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. The old tablets are smashed to pieces. The void is wide open. So what painted illusions are currently forming your armor? Will you keep clinging to that mask of reason, or are you finally ready to shatter the shell and command the wildfire of your own chaos? Definitely something to think about. Catch you next time.